People think that rental property income is passive and easy. And I just want to be a little more transparent and share with you guys what it's really like to make money from a rental property. I'm going to be fully transparent with you guys and share with you exactly how much money we've made so far in the year 2025 and how much money we've spent. What's up, YouTube? It's your girl, Rochelle, and I'm back with another video. Thank you guys for tuning in, liking, sharing, and subscribing. You guys are thebomb.com. Now, today we're sharing exactly what we earned, what we spent, and what we actually kept in terms of our out-of-state rental property. And if this is something that you are considering doing, maybe you are a current homeowner right now who's thinking about relocating and you're trying to decide if you want to keep your property and make it a rental property, or if you want to sell it, or just what the numbers could possibly look like, then this video is for you. Or maybe you just nosy and you want to see some budgeting. I'm also going to break down how being vacant, tenant free for the last 3 months, October, November, and December, has affected our cash flow, because these are numbers I don't normally have, because I have been blessed so far in the last 5 to 6 years to always have a tenant. So I'm going to just share it all with you. So just a little bit about our property. It is an out-of-state property in the state of Maryland, and it is a 3-story brick townhome built in, who knows, the 50s or 60s. We spent quite a bit of money in COVID to completely upgrade the home. We did pay off the property also in 2021, I believe. So it is mortgage free in terms of the primary mortgage, but we do currently have a HELOC, and that is what we use to pay down our debt more quickly, so that we don't have to have a HELOC payment every month. So we've owned this property for a long time. Man, I think next year will be 20 years. And it's so crazy to even be able to say that, because we bought this property when we were kind of like newlyweds. It was my husband's childhood home, and we bought it from his parents and for $50,000. And we paid it off about 10 or 15 years later. And so in that time, without really knowing, we kind of set ourselves up to be property owners, rental property owners. We relocated to the state of Hawaii, but we decided to keep the property because we were able to pay it off and it held its value over time. It's a good, solid home. Renovations that were completed, we put in brand new AC. We upgraded the electrical. Both of the bathrooms were fully gutted and renovated. And the main thing that we did was we upgraded the entire kitchen. So the property, it shows pretty well despite its age. And I'm really proud of this property. And I think the mindset, some of the mental that I'll probably touch on throughout this video, is that immediately the first thing you need to think about is someone else is going to be living in your home. Someone else is going to be managing your home. I highly, highly suggest having a property manager. There's making money, and then there's your time spent. And I think that it's better and more professional to have a property manager. You want to distance yourself from the tenant and not really have that relationship. That is just what we choose to do because we're so far away. It doesn't really seem reasonable. We've tried it in the past without a property manager, and it works better and seamless and more professional if we just stay out of the way. And so what that means is, even though this might be my husband's childhood home, a property that we were married and had our daughter Eva and raised her for the first few years of her life in, the reality is this is a out-of-state property that is supposed to be an income source and help us to cover the bills that are associated with the property, even though it's mortgage free. So, we have had a property manager for at least the last 3 years, and I will include that data with the expenses so you guys can see. Okay, let's jump right in. I'm really excited to really sit down and talk about just the rental property, because I have been inspired by content creators such as Penny's Not Perfection. I've been a long time watcher of hers, and I love how transparent she is with actual numbers and sharing just what it's like to be a homeowner and then what it's like to be a multi-home owner. And so, we get the question all the time, will we do it again? And I feel like once you hear what we are dealing with right here with the one property, you'll understand why we haven't really started to even think about a second one. I'm not opposed. It's just that this keeps us busy enough for now. Okay, so 2025 was probably the realest year. I'm talking like it's already over because it's December, but honestly, we did really well, but we also have done really well for the past couple years. I will say that I believe that this year was the first year I truly tracked our expenses. So I'm going to be using this year as my comparison point from here on out. So let's talk about the numbers. Let's talk about the income, right? So for 2025, we brought in a total of $16,208 from tenant income. And so I think that's pretty good. That's on average about $1,700 a month. If you want to get really specific, it's about $1,713 a month. And for that property, it's a solid home. It is not a standalone home, but I think that for the area that it's in, the age, and what we have going on with it, I feel like that's some pretty good income. So as mentioned, no rent was collected in the months of October through December from the tenant. So, we did good despite. So 9 months of income, $16,000, not too shabby. Now let's talk about expenses. So first we have the property manager. We pay her about $257 a month. And that totals out to just over $3,000. So $3,084 is what we have paid or plan to pay her for this year. In fact, I just remembered it's the second that I didn't pay her. So I need to make my last payment for the year and pay her. And so this covers tenant relations, inspections, maintenance coordination, rent collection. She really keeps everything in tow. We have a hands-off approach. Like I said, we've tried it in the past. She keeps things professional and keeps things moving, and she provides updates. Something that I think is not talked about enough, and when we're having these conversations with friends, family, and community, is how far do you take this? So for us, our property manager is our friend. So it is someone that I knew before, and she actually worked in the field. She's always been in property management for large companies. And so when we came to her about, possibly taking our property on, it actually kind of lit a fire in her, and she was truly interested in managing her own properties independently. And so she did ultimately start her own property management company, which I am so excited to see. And not to say that, where she was with her property management company, wasn't a good idea. That stable income, it was good. She just always had a vision to work for herself. And so she has a number of properties, and she's successful with this. So she's someone who is seasoned. She's young, but seasoned. And I think that is something that you should be looking for when you're interviewing property managers. We also have over the years kind of loosened our grip on things in terms of finances. And she has her own business card to care for anything for the property. She does not have to reach out to us for any bills or spending less than $1,000. So over the years, we have slowly increased that. So at first it was, hey, don't hit us up if it's less than $100. We trust you. We trust your judgment. She uses kind of like the 3 decision approach where she gets 3 quotes and she chooses the best one based on the company and reputation and work and all that type of stuff. She's in those communities. She networks. Let the pro be the pro. And so then over the years, we increased it to $250, then $500. And in 2025, I was able to say $1,000. Now, the work that she put in enabled us to do that, because at first we used to make less than $1,000 for rental property income and a month. And so over the years, she's been able to maintain the property, grow the property, renovate the property, and get it to the point that it's at now where she can charge more income. And so that increased her monthly fee, and that also increased the amount of money that she's able to spend without reaching out to us, especially since we're in completely different time zones. It just makes sense for our scenario. So if your property manager is not making your life easier when it comes to your rental property, then you definitely want to consider another option. This is all just my opinion and what works for us. Okay, so that's the property manager. Next, let's talk about the repairs, maintenance, and inspections. I will also include lawn care, snow removal, anything that you can think of where you have to hand someone some money to care for the property or to get it back to its original condition. We spent a total of $1,513 this year, which for us is the least amount of money we've spent on the home in the last 3 years. I was able to look and track at my old budgets, and we've spent way more than that in times past. So this was just honestly a really good year. It could be the timing. We had a tenant in January, and I just want to say that this for sure was the best tenant we ever had, and we are feeling their loss already. She was able to move out and purchase her own home. So just shows you the type of character that tenant had. She was able to receive most of her security deposit back because she had the property in immaculate condition. She communicated really well with the property manager, so she was on it when something needed to be repaired or the first leak or the first sound. She would use the property manager's app. That's the other thing. The property manager has set up these systems, what is it? COS systems. I can't remember, but basically where she can engage with the tenants and they have access and can communicate. So because of that, that saved us a lot of expense and a lot of unnecessary wear and tear because she was the best type of tenant. So we appreciate that. So that included small repairs, annual inspections, business registrations, and all the things because we're in the city of Baltimore and they are really strict with housing and inspections. And I actually don't mind it because they got to make their money, but also too, the standards are very good and they help to make sure that the tenant, because we're tenants ourselves now paying rent. I wish we had these type of regulations and this type of stuff here in Hawaii because it helps so that you don't move into a lemon, for lack of a better word. Next category is the property taxes. The same way that I love the regulations for Baltimore is the same way I can't stand the property taxes for the state of Maryland. They are exorbitant. They are ridiculous. We have seen it basically go from $600 a year to this year, I had to pay them $2,835. And this is why I say it's not always in your best interest to be a homeowner, depending on the state you live in. So in the state of Maryland, taxes are pretty high when it comes to residential and housing situations. Now, I will say that this is a tax-friendly spend so that it helps, for a tax time. But I just think that is so crazy because we've been homeowners for 20 years. So crazy to say that. I have a comparison. I have a starting point. $600 for the year to $2,800 for the year it's a scam. It's a scam. It's because they can. And so they choose to. And I wish there was a way to pay it in full for the life of the property or whatever. So in the state of Maryland, specifically in Baltimore, I can't speak for surrounding areas, we have something that is called ground rent. And it's really interesting rabbit hole if you ever want to go down it. But I found out after moving away that a lot of states don't even know what ground rent is. They never have to deal with it. But basically, someone owns the ground and the land that the house sits on. So when you purchase the home, you don't own the land. It's not like an automatic. So depending on your landowner, you basically would have to pay them monthly, quarterly, annually, or you could buy them out, depending on the person, the company. Now, when I was growing up as a little girl in Baltimore, my parents used to get a knock on the door from this little old white man. And he used to say, "How y'all doing today?" And this man used to go door to door. And he used to collect his little check for ground rent. It was his thing that he liked to do. Come to find out, this man is filthy rich. Okay. So I'm sure now may he rest in peace. He's probably passed on. In fact, I do know that his family sold their land to a property management company, ultimately one of the largest companies in the state of Maryland, who, not the best, but they had the money, so they bought it. So now that's who owns the land. But the thing that worked in our favor is they sent us a one-time bill just this year, y'all, and said, if you come up with this money, you don't have to pay ground rent ever again. I never paid something so fast. Oh, I never paid something. So I think it was about $1,500 or $1,600. We no longer have to pay ground rent ever again. It doesn't mean that we own the land. It means we don't have to pay ground rent anymore. Essentially, I have received a letter saying your ground rent payments have been paid in full. And so those are the types of things that can help us if we ever become ready to sell the home, or if we pass it down to Eva, that these are things that can work in our favor. So always keep your ear to the ground and be ready to spend when it feels right. Okay, enough about them property taxes. Let me know in the comments how much you guys are paying in property taxes. Is that, even a thing where you live? I know some people don't have to pay them based on their work or based on what state they live in. For us, yeah, it's a thing. The next bucket are the utilities, which is very interesting. This is a new category that we had to take on since October, because usually the tenant is responsible for the water and electricity and gas bills. And so whatever they use, they spend and cover. For us, since we were tenant free for the last 3 months, we incurred a total of $1,374 in utility bills. Water, sewer, I won't say trash because trash is covered by taxes. But we also have one more bill to pay because I just checked the water site and it still doesn't have the December bill loaded yet, but we are paid up. Our bill is zero for the moment. So I have one more water bill to pay for the year. I already paid for the BGE, Baltimore Gas and Electric bill. But it's just crazy, y'all. It's so crazy. I'm like, nobody's living there. Why is the bill so high? And so talking to my property manager, she was able to inform me. In fact, I think she told me before I even looked at the bill. She was like, let me just warn you, because she's a homeowner herself in the state of Maryland. She's like, the utility bills have just been ridiculous. They've just been ridiculous. So that's another expense. Next category we have is the landlord insurance. That totaled $1,449. Absolutely insane. Funny enough, our mortgage used to be $600 a month back when we had one. Our landlord insurance used to be $600 every 6 months. And our property taxes used to be $600 for the year. So imagine these numbers that I'm looking at now, y'all. It used to make sense to be a homeowner. Okay. These numbers are crazy. Can you imagine having a mortgage payment in addition to this? Just shows you. And that is, despite my best efforts to shop around, look for deals. And these are insurances that I've never filed a claim on. We've never had to use. Thank goodness, and so it's just like, you got to pay to play. And so if you don't have a property manager that is always looking for ways to monetize things, like we had pet fees and pet security deposits and things like that to protect the home, so that in case we did have damages, we could use those things to cover it. But she's also looking for ways to improve the property and to keep appraisers, visiting, which is something that we did do last year. We had an appraiser come out. And I think we also had an appraiser come out and give us an estimate on the home for when the insurance policy started all over again. We just wanted to make sure that we're getting the maximum potential amount of money in case something happens. So, things go up. We did improve the home, so I did expect the insurance to go up a little higher, but not as much. Card member fee, $39 for the year. Remember, I said we have a line of credit that we share with the property owner so that she can, take care of what she needs to take care of. But we still are ultimately responsible for paying it off. I accrued $12 in interest charges, y'all. What did I do? Oh, I forgot to pay the credit card bill 1 month this year. I was down bad. I had gotten hurt. And I just didn't care about budgeting for the week. And that was the 1 week they got me. I did not pay the card off in time. So they got me for $12. I also, in that same month, incurred a $30 NSF return payment fee. And that is that wasn't a return payment fee. That was just an overdraft fee for the rental property checking account, because I usually keep a buffer in there, but I don't always log in. I'm not always checking that. The property manager does have access to that, but we mostly, for the most part, keep an eye on it because we use the credit card for everything. So it reached a negative balance one time. And so I had to pay them jokers $30. So it was just everything. Sometimes you just have to give yourself grace. $42. Am I really going to crash out over $42? Just let it be what it's going to be. But it reminded me to check more often. Okay, so those were the expenses. So let's talk about total profit despite that. So total income was $16,208. Total expenses, $10,336. So that meant that we had a net profit for 2025 totaling $5,872. Now, I know a lot of people have mortgage payments. A lot of people aren't even green. They're running in the red for years before they start to turn a profit. So I don't want to downplay the fact that we are, in the green. But for someone who, we're thinking ahead, we're trying to game plan, and we are thinking this should be all profit. We pay the property manager, we pay for maintenance, pay your taxes, pay your insurance. By the time you do all that, that's thousands of dollars gone. So these are the things you want to consider if you are thinking about becoming a homeowner. So looking ahead in 2026, I would love to build a cushion for vacancies. Now, I don't know if I will do this outside of the HELOC. I'll probably will just keep pushing all of our extra funds to savings, our one savings that we're trying to grow separately, which is for a true emergency that we're having here in Hawaii, such as job loss or whatever. But I want a separate amount of money to continue to go to the HELOC that we can have available to us if we need it for months like now. And that would use the bare minimum amount just to cover our monthly bills that we still have to pay. We still have to pay the property manager. We still have to pay utilities, even though there's no one living there. And so that won't eat into our income that we have coming in for these months from other sources. So the other thing I would like to do a little better is track monthly instead of yearly in terms of our expenses. Our expenses tend to be really low. Lawn care and snow removal, $50 here, $30 there, but it adds up over time. And so I just want to stay profitable. I want to spot rising costs and be able to prepare for repairs a little and maintenance. I would love to have more scheduled maintenance. So those are the things that I'm going to bring to the property manager, because we do have inspections, but I used to, in 2024, I did have a company that would come, and the property manager did, that would come and maintain the property, like check the heat, check the water tank, check everything, and just make sure that, everything's running like it's supposed to. We even paid for the dryer vent to be vacuumed out and all that. Like, little things like that, I notice save us in the long run. And so my goal now is to protect the renovations that we have invested and paid for. I mean, I stopped counting at 30,000. We cash flowed $30,000 in 2021 and 2022 to cover these upgrades to the home. And if you're not maintaining that, then it's a wash. It's a wash. I've already done this, but I like to just keep it on my notes to review with the property manager our estimated turnaround times as far as moving a new tenant in, future rent pricing, and confirm with her any routine repair, or I would not even repair, maintenance costs, just so that we kind of can know what to expect outside of the unexpected. And then I want to work on my rent strategy. So that's always the number one thing, is how do you market and how do you know what to charge? Well, I signed up with companies like Zillow, which they do what they can. You don't take it with a grain of salt, but they let me know about nearby homes and how much their rents are. My property manager also does market research. She uses different sites like Rentometer and things like that. And she also just talks to the tenants and builds good relationships with them. She has tenants that literally, if the property manager, the property owner ends up selling the home or no longer working with our property manager, the tenant will sometimes say, hey, do you have another property that I can move into so that I can stay with you? So when you have a property manager that is doing and putting in the work with the tenant and building that rapport, then it helps so that we have foot traffic. So we've had several showings, several tours on the property, and mostly the feedback that we've gotten, one is there's so much choice. There's so much choice right now. Also, it's the dead of winter right now in Baltimore. Nobody wants to move in the winter. And so the timing is not the best. Also, what put us behind is we failed one of our inspections just because of the person. So like the inspector came out to make sure that we were lead safe. We passed that one. Then another inspector came out to make sure that the property is safe for all types of tenants, like Section 8 housing tenants, regular 100% paying tenants. They don't play about stuff like that. And so the first guy came and he said, hey, all you need to do is add 2 smoke detectors because the smoke detector regulations have changed. You need to now have 1 in each bedroom instead of just having 1 on each floor. And so, property manager was like, no problem. I'll see you in a couple weeks. It'll be taken care of. Brought the inspector back. It was a different inspector. He failed us for some concrete breaking in the front of the house. So I'm paying for that to be repaired, something that the first person never mentioned, because that's the thing. Like, you usually are given a huge list and it's like, fix all this stuff. Don't contact me until it's done. Whatever. That did not happen. So there's so many things that can happen that are out of your control, and you just need to be ready for the unexpected. And so having that bigger buffer will definitely help. My biggest strategy of 2026 that I plan to do is to have a long stay tenant. So if the tenant is a really solid tenant for the first year, my goal is to lock them in for a year, 2 years, 3 years, because I feel like turnover costs money. And if you have a responsible tenant who's not giving you any trouble, they're enjoying their stay, we need to meet somewhere in the middle to make sure that we keep that good tenant. Would we buy another rental in 2026? I think it depends a lot on our debt payoff journey. So I will say no for 2026 because based on my payoff guide, I won't pay our debt off until at least 2027. And that's just credit card debt. So I think the more practical thing for us now is just to save and to continue to pay off debt. I do keep my eye on the market right now. Nothing really interests me. I think the interest rates are just so high that it just doesn't even make sense. I mean, you're talking about, I purchased a home for $50,000 with an 7% interest rate because we were so young when we bought the home. We had no credit history. I had like one $500 credit card, college credit card when we bought our home. And Micah didn't believe in credit cards, didn't believe in debt. So he had no credit history. So, despite that high interest rate, 7%, we still were able to pay off the home quickly because the balance was so low. Now that's like a regular rate for a home that's $200,000. So that's a lot to consider. For now, we're just making this rental our priority. We're just focusing on that. Now, let me know what you thought about this video. Let me know your personal rental property experiences, your own views on being a homeowner or not being a homeowner. Right now, I'm a condo life girly. So we live in a very modest condo here in Hawaii, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I think that the less square footage you pay for, the less you have to worry about keeping clean, the less you have to worry about maintaining. I've lived in a house my whole life. And so living in a condo, it works for us because we don't have to pay HOA because we are renters. But if we were to purchase something, I do think a home would be the more solid option. But this is just one of my videos in my transparency series for the month of December. And I hope you enjoy. Don't forget to download your freebies so that you can start your mortgage payoff journey right on my website, RochelleAdamson.com. That's it for today. I'll see y'all in the next video. And until then, you know what it is. Peace, love, and budgets.